Uh, it's recording.
Right.
Everyone, thank you for coming. I welcome you all to the first pseudo intellectual lecture held at the Panko server. And I think that's all that I have for an introduction at the moment. Uh, Over to Professor Motopuri.
Right. Good evening, everyone. Today's topic for the lecture is the psychology of simping and why one must not do it. Now, one of the faults, I think, of the Ten Commandments in the Old Testament literature, before, of course, it was effectively repudiated by the revisionism of the New Testament to an extent, is that there isn't a single commandment which says, Thou shalt not simp. There is a commandment that says, Thou shalt not murder. But there is no commandment that says, Thou shalt not simp. And before beginning, of course, I'd like to start on a more polemical note, which is still, I think, a valid way to approach the topic, considering the nature of the topic that I'm engaging with. Simping is an activity. Being a simp is a personality trait, which I think essentially is debauching and reducing the standards of not just masculinity, but also of the social discourse that's prevalent, not just in India, where we are situated, but across the world. Now, you are very well entitled to ask, on what grounds do I make such comments? You are very well entitled to ask, on what do I even mean when I use the word simp? I'd say that let me first begin by defining what a simp is. A simp essentially is someone who behaves in an ingratiating manner just to solicit attention or apparent affection which he wouldn't otherwise receive. We need to have complete clarity of the terms, regarding the terms which we are using. So now that I've defined what it means to be a simp, I'll quote a few statistics. Now, USA Today had a very interesting piece by the political scientist Warren Farrell about a crisis of masculinity. He called it a boy crisis, and that it is a global crisis. Worldwide, and I'll just start quoting the statistics, and these are quite alarming, I might say. Worldwide, 60% of the students who achieve less than the baseline level of proficiency in any of the three core subjects of the program for the international assessment are boys. Even there is research material which says that the IQs of boys are dropping. The IQs of boys are dropping. Now, if I were to talk about, like in the chat, I got a very good suggestion about belly delphine. Now, as a very modest boomer, I don't really take cognizance of the developments that take place in social media platforms like Twitch. But I have very reliable sources tell me that the extent of simping has been greatly aggravated in platforms such as Twitch. And not just that, but platforms such as I have people tell me this platform called OnlyFans, and so on. So that's a very vulgar kind of simping, which I will address out of duty later. I think it would be pertinent to go into the psychology of simping. Why do people simp? And why is it almost always that it is males who simp. It turns out that there are very good evolutionary reasons for doing so. In the chat, I got this very, I'd say, a very apposite observation that males happen to be horny. Well, I think males don't really have a prerogative over that facet of the human nature. I don't think it's exclusively male. But there are definitely a few reasons if you look at it from an evolutionary perspective. There are many people who suggest that the human nature is tabula rasa. It's essentially a blank slate, that there's nothing intrinsic in what it means to be a human. But this is a very misleading picture. In fact, I digress for a minute just to say that this is one of the reasons why Marxist analysis of the world failed, because they assume that the human nature is a blank slate, essentially. We must note what the two biological sexes are essentially and how these came about to exist. Why didn't asexual reproduction suffice? Well, I could quote what the standard literature on the material says regarding the benefits of sexual reproduction, but I think that's not the point. So I'll move on to how the two biological sexes manifested themselves in the genetic arena. The two sexes essentially adopt very different strategies in order to continue for the perpetuation of their species. The males essentially have to put in very little effort for rearing the offspring. In most species, now someone can very well go and quote exceptions, but that doesn't negate the validity of this point, that almost exclusively it is the female organism that happens to bear the child. Quite a bit of time, in fact. And the resources of the female is utilized in order for the development of the child. Males don't really have to contribute much to the process of giving birth. It's essentially their contribution doesn't really last very long. It doesn't take much as compared to that of the female. At the same time, it is a tactic also for males to wish to, not just males, species in general, to ensure that their genes proliferate as much as possible. That is the very bedrock of evolution, that you ensure that your genes proliferate and promulgate for the continuity of the species. Now, of course, if someone has taken cognizance of the recent developments post 1970s and onwards about gene-centered evolution, they say that it is essentially genes which seek to continue to exist. So essentially, males don't really have much to contribute to the giving birth of a child, and essentially in many species it might be observed that their strategy only involves impregnating as many females, and then and please forgive me for resorting to more colloquial lingo, but that it is males who behave like a hoe. I see this term being used very frequently, and I think it is a very apposite term in this context. So forgive me for resorting to such an inelegant term. Now, that aside, so essentially that is a very valid tactic. Now, we see a plethora of tactics for rearing children, multiple species, whether it be in ducks, whether it be in primates, whether it be in other species. But I'll focus just on humans. We could do a lecture on simping in other species, but I think if you're talking about it from a psychological perspective, we ought to focus on humans, since it is only us whom we can subject to a psychological analysis. So in humans, simping essentially, we can argue, is due to the same reason, as I already mentioned, the fundamental asymmetry between males and females. This is something that has been observed quite a bit in the natural world. and yet vestiges of these remain still in society. And in the recent few years, I would not even decades, years, we have seen the recrudescence of such phenomenon, of such facets in the personality of humans. Now, I've been on Discord for quite a long time, and I have seen a lot of stuff. So let me draw on a few personal experiences, which I could perhaps go on to elaborate. I have seen, for example, 13-year-olds simp for someone who is 22 or something, using the term goddess and so on, which is actually very cringe. It's cringe-inducing. It kills your brain cells to have to witness such a deplorable conversations going on. But essentially, such things are very common. Now, Utkarsh raises a very pertinent point. Don't I think that my sample space is very small and only limited to Discord as that? Well, I did cite, I think in a 30-minute lecture, or 20, because I'm taking on questions not at the end, but also as the lecture proceeds. I think for someone to expect me to draw on a large sample space would be a very unreasonable expectation, might I say. It is a very unreasonable expectation. So I really object to that line of attack being raised against me. Anyway, so I've seen similar cases of simping on different platforms. So why does it happen? One might ask that one might very well raise the point that, okay, in the natural world, it might be the case that the males are doing this in order to further their genome. Or rather, from a gene-centered view of evolution, the genes that select for simping do so because by increasing the proclivity of the organism to engage in simping, the rest of the genome and that individual gene itself shall also continue to exist for quite a bit of time until, of course, mutation occurs or different cases of a transformation of the genome for which there are processes. So definitely one can say that's a manifestation of that, minus, of course, the desire to look for a sexual partner. I think in this case, society has done a very good job of setting the standards or limits as to what sort of sexual encounters are acceptable and what degenerate to promiscuity. I think that society has done a very good job at doing that. But recently we also find that under the garb of increasing acceptance, we are sort of debasing the very foundations of society and even repudiating the values that we ought to retain. Okay, so I've been asked a very apposite question in this case. What is my opinion on platforms like Tinder or Bumble, and how are they even different when compared with Discord dating servers? Well, see, when it comes to such platforms like Tinder or Bumble, while I'm not very fond of them, I'd say the Discord dating servers are way worse. They are way worse. Because, and I shall not burden anyone with the scenes that I have had to witness. I think that would be very selfish of me. But I think the amount of cringe in the latter is way more when compared to the former, which again I'd say is simply a modified version of matrimonial sites to an extent, except they are designed, I'd say, for a younger audience. But anyway, I'd say that given the trajectory that such apps have taken or progressed along, I'd say that even they happen to be, in a sense, providing a fillip to the social enemy that's somehow becoming more prevalent in the recent times. So anyway, if I were to talk about the psychological aspect, I think it is essentially a product of our evolutionary heritage. And I think this is also one of the facts that evolutionary psychology is an acceptable form of cognitive psychology. Unlike what many people like B.F. Skinner, like when Noam Chomsky wrote his famous critique of B.F. Skinner's book, which was essentially behavioralist in nature, which said that all of our aspects of the human experience, uh, who are with Noam Chomsky wrote a critique of B.F. Skinner's work, which was essentially behavioralist in nature, and Chomsky introduced the cognitive revolution. So essentially, one of his points was that there is something such as an intrinsic human nature. So I'd go and note that we are essentially a blank slate that is molded by all the other societal structures. So that's definitely argue. I'd argue that why we sin is essentially based on our evolutionary heritage. But at the same time, the second aspect also of the lecture, I think, is very pertinent. Why one must not do it, and that question, I think aspect is inextricably linked to how does one stop doing so. How does one stop so? I think these are related, and I'll definitely deal with both of them. Now, so after having dealt with the underlying causes, and this is a very complicated topic. There is a surfeit of literature available on the nature of humanity and the different aspects. Sociobiology, just like the first book by E.O. Wilson, Sociobiology, was very controversial because of the assumptions it made about the human nature. But I'd say that more or less, at least to me, it seems to be self-evident that there is something called the human nature that is actually a tangible property of humans, and that the extreme behavioralist stance is something that I repudiate myself. But at the same time, we must remember that institutions play a very important role in molding our facets. Because we need to understand that a gene in isolation is nothing without the background in which it exists, which includes not just the other genes of the gene pool, but also the social environment. Which is why I'd say all of us should ensure that the environment isn't conducive for simping. And now, this is when I'll move on to the second aspect. Though, of course, I will draw on aspects of the draw on points of the first aspect. Now, Utkarsh raises the points on simping and having crushes and thing. And do I think both are the same? Well, if having a crush means that you degenerate to the extent that you'd engage in genuflection just in order to solicit her attention, then or his attention, then I'd say that they are essentially the same. But by default, they are not synonyms, and they cannot be treated as synonyms. They are very different. So I'd say that these do overlap. But where they overlap is something that depends quite a bit on the very nature of the particular crush that we are talking about. So it's case dependent. There cannot really be a generalized answer to that. I think it depends a lot on the particular case that we're talking about. Now, let me see. There's this question: how do you expect commerce students to understand all the gene biology talk? Well, I expect that they paid attention in class 10 to their biology. So it's a direct explanation of that. So name again asks a very valid question, I would say. That when you're talking about the term simping, would I simp for Sir Christopher Hitchens and Noam Chomsky? Well, Christopher, I must say that there are a few factual errors. Christopher Hitchens wasn't knighted. So if you add Sir, you will have to add after and not before. He was not knighted. Second of all, if you're talking about Noam Chomsky in a question, I'd say you rather preface it with professor. Anyway, these minor quibbles aside, see, appreciation of someone's intellect doesn't mean that you simp for them. I appreciate, or people in general, I'd say, ought to appreciate the positive facets of everyone's personality. That doesn't really mean that you subordinate yourself to the extent that it would qualify as simping. That's not really the case. I think it would be pertinent here to talk about the Guru Shishya Parampara. Would someone call that simping? Yes, because the disciple was essentially expected to be veritably subordinate to the Guru? Maybe not. I don't think so. I think that is essentially a respect for wisdom, a respect for intellect. And I think to obtain that, to subordinate yourself in order to obtain that is definitely a worthy goal. Now, Manan displays a common misconception when he says that's not simping and that the disciple doesn't want sex. Well, not really, because the Guru was a male and the Shishya was a male and homosexuality was frowned upon in those days. That aside, of course, we do find many verses that engaging in the fornicating with your Guru's disciple is one of the worst kind of sins, equivalent to the cow slaughter or drinking distilled alcohol called shura. So definitely these things did exist in ancient times as well. And no, simping isn't just restricted to a process that one engages in to ultimately end up copulating with the concerned individual. That's a very parochial view of the very nature of the word simping. I defined the term at the very beginning, that one simps in order to gain attention or affection that they wouldn't otherwise receive. That is the definition of simping. I think I've dealt with these two questions sufficiently. If anyone has any quarrel, you are more than welcome to go ahead and talk about it. Okay, can the cow protectors be called simp? Not really. Because even though I condemn simps, I don't think they are that retarded to be compared to cow protectors. So no. I'm here to talk about how you must not simp, and I do send my sympathies to those who have been smitten by this disorder. And I hope that at the end of this, people will be able to overcome this very serious condition and return to normalcy and become sane individuals. Now, the second aspect is why one must not simp. Now, I think a very terse response to that will suffice. But it's not in my nature to give a terse response because I love using words. So anyway, if someone were to subordinate themselves to the extent that they'd contribute practically nothing to a relationship except be a constant source of servility, of servitude, I really think that they are insulting themselves. Self-denigration is fine when a part of comedy. But self-denigration in a relationship with someone is, I think, the antecedent to a very uncomfortable chain of events that I think very often will play out, which shouldn't play out, which shouldn't happen. You got to respect yourself. Even if you think you're not worth respect, at least don't stoop so low as to engage in simping. I think that's a very insult to the fact that human civilization has over thousands of years overcome most of the challenges our ways. And finally, we find ourselves at a stage where we have the power, we have the capability to look into the night sky and fathom the origin of the universe or how it will end. And despite such an intellectual jump that we have taken for any human who truly understands his significance or his value to ever engage in such ignominious behavior is, I'd say, something that is very inappropriate. Learn to respect yourself, even in any relationship that you are a part of. I must also say that a special dispensation can be made in some cases. For example, some people might naturally be bottoms. Now, to them, I don't really think what goes on in a person's bedroom under the garb of BDSM is none of my business. Well, simps can be females as well. I just said that most of them tend to be male, but that doesn't preclude a female from being a simp. I have seen female simps also. I have seen female simps also. No. See, the problem is you are restricting yourself to the Google definition. I have clearly defined a simp at the beginning of the lecture. Different people will define terms in different way. If you actually paid attention, then you would have realized what my definition of a simp is. A simp essentially is a person who engages in ingratiating behavior, who is unctuous, in order to solicit affection and attention, which he or she wouldn't otherwise receive. Yes, yeah, I get that point, which is why I reiterated it again for your benefit. Now, Akash has raised a very pertinent discovery of this. The more common meaning of what it means to be a simp. It's a short form of simpleton. But again, I clearly defined the term before. So I think that it is essentially different. And I've already defined that term twice, and I don't really think I need to do it again. Our name again has asked me to elaborate on the gigolo aspect of simping. Now, see, there is a difference between being interested in members of the female species who happen to be older. I think that's a perfectly reasonable taste to have, and I wouldn't condemn anyone for having such a taste. But I think societally it's frowned upon. I think again the thing is why someone might be a gigolo is because they and see I'll strike off the financial support part, and in general talk about what it means to be a gigolo in the more broader sense, not just the financial sense. I think it's a byproduct of the fact that many males are not able to take care of themselves. So they want someone to take care of them. And very often it happens to be someone who's older. Or, in general, if they have a fetish for someone who happens to be older, I think they are very well entitled to have it. But if no, I'm sorry, Utkarsh, that need not be a mate. You could very well be smitten by someone who fits the criteria that I just discussed. And would you reduce such an individual to just being a maid? I think that would be very demeaning. Not to be elitist, of course, but the word maid also has certain connotations. No, I get your point, but I'm talking about it from the simp perspective. That emotional support is also an aspect, not just someone. Yeah, emotional support is the aspect that I was most talking about. Especially since there is this, in my opinion, crisis of masculinity going on, which is a very contentious topic, so I won't go into it. But there is a surfeit of literature on this material which one could peruse afterwards. So essentially, why not to simp? I think I've dealt with it. Why you should not simp? I think even though it was relatively terse, it was a sufficient response. How not to simp? And I'll deal with questions after I sign off with a short note on how not to simp. How not to simp is definitely tough because people generally don't understand or appreciate their own value. Such a person understands that you as a human being are also entitled to respect. As he gave up gaming, which is, I think, an addiction is, and also, but rather their friends, colleagues, and the topic. But I do believe that it is something you can overcome, and I have people overcome. So, with this, I'd like to sign off. Thank you for your attention. This question is Auntie Ki Ghanti the best example of gigolo without the finance perspective out there on the planet? Well, it depends on what you mean by best. It definitely is a rather quaint and interesting example. I don't know if it's fair to call it the best. And Manan has said this refutes her opinion on prostitution. I refuse to believe that anyone would allow themselves to just be in physical contact with people in order for material or economic gain. Now, this is again a very contentious issue, but I think this has to do if there is no other option, Manan. So you essentially have engaged in a self-defeating argument because you said there is no other option. If there is no other option, they would do it. And that's precisely my point. Apart from human trafficking, of course, if there is no other way to earn your livelihood, then prostitution will always be there. It's very ancient. It's there since ancient times. From the time of Vatsaya and who wrote the Kama Sutra, you can find references of prostitutes. Even you might have examples predating that as well. Ever since you had an urban society in India, post maybe 500 BC, where urbanization took place in the Gangetic Plain. I'm not quite aware what was the situation in tribal kingdoms, but definitely when there was a booming city life, we saw prostitution. But that's because of the societal inequalities. Prostitution and pornography essentially objectifies women. Which is why I think that, I'm of the opinion that at least most individuals, whether males or females, wouldn't want to take part in such forms of media or such economic activities if they had an alternate choice. Even people who say that they would actually wouldn't. Of course, due to other reasons such as the societal disgrace that accompanies. Now, unless there are any other questions, I think I've dealt with all the preceding questions sufficiently. Okay. What about those who are in prostitution and pornography? Okay, this is the final question. Final question. For the money, as I've already said, we see. Essentially, there are people who work in sweatshops in China for the money. Just because they do it for money doesn't mean that it is something that's moral or ethical or that should take place in society. We also have people who work at bare minimum subsistence wages, or people who, even if they get good wages, such as if you look at Byju's, look at the toxic work culture there in most tech companies. You get the money definitely, but it's definitely a toxic work environment. The transition to a more fair and ethical society does not just entail earning money, but also respect for the sense of ethics, morals, and everything else that is an inextricable part of the human experience. Thank you.